What is product marketing? How it is different from product management? And how does large companies really use product marketing strategies to drive millions or billions of users? Today, I had a pleasure to invite Viv Luu from Uber Freight to disclose the secret of being a great product marketing manager and launch $1 billion product. Hey guys, this is Dr. Nancy Lee, a direct product featured in Forbes. I've helped 1,000 people land their dream PM job offer in FAANG companies and unicorn startup and continue to get promoted as a product leader. In this channel, we cover free product management training and tech trends. And like, subscribe, and check out new video every Tuesday. Hi, Vivian. So great to have you on our show. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me. Anything for you?
Awesome. So we know each other since Boston about 10 years ago. I'm so glad to reconnect again and excited to see your career progression. And based on have studied about your career path, you actually grew from someone who is an individual contributor in a marketing agency. And now you are director of product marketing at Uber Freight. So excited to see that.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been quite the journey.
Yeah. So today I really love to hear your insight and the secret about how to be a great product marketing manager because this is such a unique niche. It's not a marketing, it's not product management, it's something in between. So let's dive deeper. Before we dive in, let me do a proper introduction regarding our guest, Viv Luu. And Viv Luu is a director and head of product marketing at Uber Freight. Over the past 15 years, and we led and partnered with cross-functional teams of Fortune 500 companies and hyper-growth startups, including IBM, Microsoft, Adobe, Nike, and Convoy, to launch and scale product. Prior to joining the product marketing world, we served in agency and in-house full-stack marketing and the creative strategy roles. Her and her team's work have earned industry awards, including Hermes Creative Awards, American Business Awards, and Communication Awards. This is so exciting. Hey, I have so much we can learn from you, V. Now, let's get started, V. So let's talk about your past to product marketing. Given it has been like 10 years since you applied for a job, and now you successfully grew your career and from the agency all the way to director product marketing of Uber Freight. So how exactly did you make it happen to land your dream job?
There are different paths we can take. We can choose to have organic career growth where what comes our way, we can choose and explore and like take what comes our way. The
Yeah.
other approach is choosing an intentional career where we know where we want to go or we know where we want to go next. And we will focus on developing the skills, relationships, and frameworks to get there. And for me, what I found was I wanted to choose to have an intentional career.
Yeah.
And I also wanted to choose a career where I could build a lot of communities, networks, and relationships around me. So I'm not growing by myself, I'm growing with other people. And I'm also getting to expand my aperture to understand what else is out there. Just knowing that I want to live a really fulfilling life and a fulfilling career is part of that.
Yeah, I
Um,
can see that in your career trajectory. And actually, you work in many different countries and many different companies, all sizes, and all the way from startup in Dubai, and then working for Series A, Series E pre-IPO startup, and now working for Uber, all different part of a career. So can you break it down further? How exactly you actually land a job as a director of product marketing at Uber, and maybe a little bit further regarding you exploring your career, given like you were rejected by many companies, but never see the like raw talent inside of you. So how did you really conquer all those challenges?
Yeah, well, I think rejection is just a part of your growth journey, whether it's in life or your career overall. What I found was instead of just going and directly applying on a platform, I wanted to know who I would work with,
Mm-hmm.
and I knew what my ideal day like needed to look like. I also had a really clear list of what my hard yeses are, and then also
Yeah.
what my hard no's are for where I want to work and who I want to work with.
Mm-hmm.
And based off those criteria that, came from internal reflection as well as learning about and understanding other people's career journeys as well, that led me to create like a short list of companies I wanted to work for. And through that short list, I started conducting a lot of online research and then
Mm-hmm.
also research in my network. Fun fact, before I became a marketer, I was a journalist. So this was a skill that I had honed over time. It's the skill of like, stalking or researching companies, their growth cycles, also conducting market research to understand the markets I wanted to dive into. And then
Mm-hmm.
ultimately, once I landed on like a short list of like 3 to 5 companies where I knew like I'm going there next, then
Mm-hmm.
I would start to look online at who's working there and then also look at maps of the organization. So there are a few different tools that are available online. LinkedIn is a great place to start. The org is also another resource to use as well. Sometimes it might be outdated, but
Mm-hmm.
by combining that information together and then augmenting by reaching out, saying hi, asking
Yeah.
if you can just learn about someone's career path, learn about their role, learn about what it's like to work at their company, like staying really open and curious and not necessarily like going in immediately and saying, I want to work here.
Mm-hmm.
That helps open up the aperture so that you understand what you can be getting yourself into. You understand a work environment and you also understand and share what the opportunities are out there.
Yeah, I love the strategies and quote stalking people on LinkedIn or those kind of tools. We're definitely going to link those tools in the description of the show note. And so let's be specific. Uber is a very popular company. I bet many people out there want to stalk the hiring manager, director of product, or director of product marketing. So how exactly you land those opportunities to identify, first of all, who to stalk, who is a decision maker, what did you say to them? How would you make them say yes to your invitation? So break it down. I'm very curious.
Yeah, so for me, before I came to Uber Free, I was at a very rapidly growing Series E startup. And I really liked what I was doing. I really liked the teams I was working for. And I also really liked the problem space. And the problem space I was in was around freight, logistics, and supply chain.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew that Uber Freight was also working in the same problem space and had a different team composition and structure. And I was super interested in expanding my learning there. So I knew what kind of environment I wanted to work on and I knew what kind of problems I wanted to work on. I think that's a first step,
Mm-hmm.
especially when you're trying to move into a much larger organization where you can have very consumer facing products or you can have very B2B facing products. Within B2B, which is my area of expertise, you can work on small businesses, mid-sized businesses, as well as enterprise.
Mm-hmm.
And then there are lots of different sales and channel motions as well. And then
Yeah.
the organizations typically organize their product marketing, product, and then sales teams accordingly.
Mm-hmm.
And so I did a little bit of research around what it might look like to work at Uber Freight. I also took a look at the marketing team and everyone's background, especially as a product marketer.
Mm-hmm.
We also often work at the intersection of not just marketing and products, but also sales.
Yeah.
So I did a bit of research just to see like who's who in the zoo. And then last but not least, I took a look at the executive team as well. I wanted to make sure I was in a place where I could not only get in and do some really great work and do some great marketing,
Mm-hmm.
but it's a place where I can really go and grow my career and I can have a lot of bandwidth so that I a lot of bandwidth and runway
Yeah.
so I can do some really interesting things and get what I want to get out of my work experience.
Were you
Yeah.
at Seattle at that time?
No, I wasn't in Seattle at the time. I had moved down to San Francisco
Uh-huh.
and I believe it was my second year of being in San
I
Francisco.
see.
Yeah, so I had two motives for exploring that opportunity. The first was I knew I wanted to stay in San Francisco,
Mm-hmm.
and I didn't want to move back to Seattle. I'd fallen in love with the city and was starting to build a really great life here. So I needed to make a change so that I could get a little bit more rooted and grounded in my new home. The
Mm-hmm.
second piece was I was a fully remote employee, fully remote team member, and I would
Yeah.
fly back to Seattle on a quarterly basis. And I
Mm.
wanted to shift a little bit for me personally, what works best for me because I'm like the peopleist of people is going into
I
an
can second that.
yeah, like I need to see people, otherwise I'm not okay. So, like I wanted to go and have an environment that I could land in and also have the opportunity to be a bit flexible with my time.
Mm-hmm.
And so I wanted to be in a space where I could have an office to go into. I could have team members I could go and connect with on a more regular basis. So that was a really the important component for me.
Mm-hmm.
So I knew what my ideal day I wanted my ideal day to look like. I knew what I wanted my ideal team to look like. And so I started conducting research on LinkedIn to see who the hiring manager was. I ended up connecting with this person. We just got coffee. And my
How did you get
immediate,
him to
and
say
yeah.
yes to coffee? I know what we have lots of students inside the PM Accelerator trying to use our networking strategies and get people to accept LinkedIn invitation and pitch to hiring managers. And of course, one of the like conversation will also encourage our student to ask for 15 minutes on a Zoom call. So, but you took it to the next level. Let's have a coffee. It's even like more like engaged way to get to know each other and also bigger commitment from the hiring manager perspective. So how did you get him out to have coffee with you?
Yeah, it really is a little bit on the tougher side for sure because everyone is really busy during
Mm-hmm.
this time of the year. Like there's a lot of changes happening in the market, and as a working professional, like your scope is constantly growing.
Yeah.
And so the my strategy for approaching these types of conversations is I just want to talk shop and I want to talk best practices. And this applies like both at the leadership level with like senior managers and directors, and it also applies at the individual contributor, including at the entry level, right?
Yeah.
Like, how do you talk about best practices? How do you talk about strategies for finding great roles as well as applying new best practices and learning new topics? It's more around curiosity and then trying to really understand someone as a person and getting to know them as a person.
Mm-hmm.
Within our professional networks, like we should always be connecting and networking, but doing so in a way that feels very authentic, right? My goal for
Yeah.
that conversation wasn't just to go get a new job, it was to actually go and get to know another marketer.
And so this also lead me to the next question I want to ask you. Then you land a job. That's how you land an interview. And then pass the interview, you land a job at Uber Freight. So what is product marketing? And literally, lots of my audience always get very confused. What is product marketing? How is it different from product management? Especially you actually described it earlier since the intersection between marketing, product management, and sales. So can you demystify for us what is product marketing?
Yeah, so I think there are lots of different definitions, and so I'll just share, my definition. I think it's that process of working closely together cross-functionally with product, sales, and extended marketing teams to bring a product or a solution to life, and then
Mm-hmm.
ultimately make it sellable, so because it aligns with customer needs. And this is a collaborative effort between products, marketing, definitely sales teams, and then also extended groups as well because what we do want to focus on is we want to make sure that we're solving the right problem for the right people at the right time,
Mm-hmm.
right? That's a core part of understanding. I think even in the product management space, like you need to know what the problem is and you need to know who's having that problem so you can go and help solve it.
Yeah.
And then ultimately thinking through how you as a business and how your product is ultimately best positioned to help go solve that problem. Like
Mm-hmm.
that's the core component or the step one of product marketing.
Yeah.
It's bringing that product to market. I think after a product is launched, though, a product marketer's job isn't done. The next step is focusing on working with cross-functional stakeholders to help grow adoption for that product. So
Mm-hmm.
that means you work with sales to help position the product effectively and then go sell to the right people at the right time at the right pricing and the right packaging. If
Mm-hmm.
the product is going to grow on a product led growth motion, so the product like sells
Yeah.
itself,
Yeah.
you
Like
want to also make
Zoom.
exactly
Yeah.
you want to make sure that the product is surfaced in the right places at the right time. So you
Mm-hmm.
intercept a buyer's journey in order for them to actually see, gain exposure to that product, and then consider and buy and use it, or even try and use it before they go and buy it. That's
Mm-hmm.
around like acquisition, right? And then last but not least, it's really, really important as a product marketer to also understand your market and your customer as they're using the product and as their needs are shifting and evolving so that you can then feedback that input to product management teams so that you can help support the development and evolution of the product roadmap so your product stays relevant and your customers continue using it
Mm-hmm.
and you get new customers for your product as well. That way, you're ultimately all achieving that goal of, helping drive pipeline for your business. That pipeline then closes, and then ultimately you help drive revenue for your business, and you're delivering increasingly better products to your customers.
This is awesome. We just had like 3 minutes crash course of what is product marketing. And this also lead me to really think about how does product marketers work with product management. So sounds like it's a cross-functional team. And when we, as a product manager, we also design the go-to-market strategy and really care about user adoption. So there's a lot of overlapped responsibilities, or at least KPI for our product. So can you give us maybe some real-life examples?
In terms of activities, like the way I see it is there are parts of the product life cycle, and
Yeah.
then there are also parts of the go-to-market life cycle. And product management tends to own the majority of the product's life cycle. Like that's their baby. One product manager, hopefully. Sometimes some product managers own multiple products.
Mm-hmm.
And then with product marketing, we typically own the go-to-market life cycle.
Yeah.
And just for a little bit of context, like in the US, on average, a product marketer owns three different products. Sometimes it
Oh.
flexes up. And then for like super, super high performance, super well resourced, super laser focused teams, that ratio is one product marketer to about 1.5 product managers.
Oh.
So our work is usually like distributed across multiple products in comparison to some product management organizations,
Mm-hmm.
because the go-to-market life cycle, it's a life cycle, and it also comes in phases and stages of
Makes
varying
sense.
levels of intensity, I'd say, and also output.
Yeah.
So with a product manager, like their key, what my perspective is
Mm-hmm.
that there's a focus around like discovering what the meaningful and value problems are to solve, looking at defining the product strategy, owning the planning and road mapping, and then helping ultimately guide product development across like data science, engineering, and then
Yeah.
product design teams. And then ultimately, it's on the product manager to manage the decisions around the product lifecycle. So
Mm-hmm.
trade-offs in terms of which features you build and don't build,
Yeah.
that's all on the product manager. The product marketer like is along for the ride. Um,
Mm-hmm.
where we start to intersect is looking at helping to validate some of these problems. So we
Okay.
hypothesize what the problems and challenges are, then we can go and vet them with the market. So that's where a lot of
Mm.
customer research, market insights come in really handy. The other piece, ideally, is we
Mm-hmm.
collaborate around product packaging and pricing. So
Yeah.
what's it going to look like? How do you bundle it together? How much is it going to cost? And then
Mm-hmm.
how are you ultimately going to bring the product to market? And then at the end of the day, like you're aligned on what does this ultimately give to the business? So does that
Yeah.
look like monthly recurring revenue if you're in a subscription-based system? Does it look like annual recurring revenue if you're
Mm-hmm.
based more on, a different type of licensing fee for B2B businesses? Do you have add-on solutions? Do you bundle those solutions together? Are those solutions free, or do you have to pay for them? Those are the types of conversations that product marketers and product managers should be having all together.
Mm-hmm.
Last but not least, it's developing user personas. So for a
Yeah.
lot of different products, you have lots of different types of users. They use your product in different ways. That's where product management and product marketing intersect and collaborate together. And
Mm-hmm.
last but not least, you work on developing the product launch plan. PMMs, or product marketers, usually own that. Product managers help vet and validate. And then we work cross functionally with our sales team members to make sure that
Mm-hmm.
on the other end, when the product is alive and when it works and when it's in the market and then it gets to the right people see it, they are interested in buying. Someone's on the other end to catch that interest and that demand and
Yeah.
then go fulfill that demand, right?
And now let's quickly switch a little bit regarding what it takes to become good friends between per marketer and per manager in your day-to-day operations.
So I think first it starts with empathy.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think there's also this concept of like choosing your heart and doing it together.
Mm-hmm.
And then last, like following through. Like I think that's for me like my three-step process. The first is empathy. Like every single team member that you work with, they've got a life outside of work and they've got key focus areas and challenges that they face at work. And I
Mm-hmm.
think focusing on building relationships first and understanding who your counterpart is as a person is really, really important. So, for example, when I was an individual contributor, I really focused on building relationships and understanding my PM team like first. Like that was
Mm-hmm.
my priority. And I
Yeah.
encourage my team to do the same now as I'm building out a product marketing function at Uber Freight. The second piece is continuous follow ups, making sure that when you do connect and when you do work together, the relationship is relational, not transactional. And
True.
what that means is you're working together to achieve shared ambitions and goals. And there's work to always get done. But I don't want team members to wait 6 months before they reconnect with their product managers. And I don't want them to necessarily meet on just a quarterly basis. Like you need to consistently show face, show up, and show support. That is really important. And then in terms of doing the work, like clear roles and responsibilities, clear lines of delineation. I do
Yeah.
this, you do that. Like let's go and tackle this together. Let's regroup. Those are really important. For me, one of my downsides is I have a really bad memory. I don't remember anything. And so I have to take really careful notes, and I consistently go and reconnect with people to get reminded of what I have to do, and validate what I have to do in order to like go and get things done. And having this like source of truth, this record around like what I am held accountable for and what how I want to contribute to my teams is really important. Like
Yeah.
find as a PMM and as a PM, like my recommendation is to go find your system so you know where what you're responsible for, also what you're not responsible for, and like how teams are going to interact and collaborate together. That I think is really important. Business leaders also like have a role to play in this as well. Organizationally, we want to create systems and cultures of openness, collaboration, growth, and then also clarity.
So you told us amazing framework. So now let's what does it look like when you work with product managers at Uber Freight? So what after you use the framework, you spending thirsty Thursdays with your product managers every single day. So what's the relationship look like right now? Give us some like insider secrets.
So the product management team at Uber Freight is fantastic. I feel regularly inspired by everyone on that team. Like you've just got like amazingly like super, super smart, really, really passionate people who have like areas of focus that they're like very committed to within the business. And then everybody also has like amazing hobbies and interests outside of work. So it's just a great group to work with. We also have, as a business, a like very ambitious and fast moving roadmap.
I
At
can
a lot of
tell.
like, yeah, so at a lot of fast growing organizations, like that is becoming the norm. And so as a team, what that looks like is everyone's moving at a million miles a minute. We're constantly shipping products, new features, etc. And like the work is ongoing, right? Like there's no
Yeah.
shortage of work at Uber Freight. And it's really, really important when you're working in a super, super fast-paced organization to focus on a couple of things. The first thing is remember that you're working with people, right?
Yeah.
Like we're running really hard, we're sprinting really hard. A lot of times, like we're pushing ourselves to the limit, remembering that we're people so that we can give each other breaks and we create room and space for learning is really key. The second piece is like as an individual and as a team, we also like provide each other air cover so that when somebody needs to step out, take a break, go on a
Yeah.
vacation and recharge their batteries, like that is part of the process. It's a marathon, not a sprint. We provide that air cover. And last, in order for these two things to happen, building great products and then maintaining a sense of humanity, like we also have to have trust. Like we've got a really, really core environment where teams know what they're doing, like teams know what each other are doing for the most part. We have regular updates. We have clear processes where we define who owns what, when things will be done, and by when things will be done, and like what type of quality of execution we look for. And we trust our teams in getting the job done. And our focus is around ability to execute. At the end of the day, we need to get things done, and that ultimately helps build trust.
This is awesome. This is like a playbook in terms of, especially when you talk about the importance of setting the boundaries and get to trust, building trust in day-to-day work, and also create like air cover because burnout is true. I heard a lot about like recently, especially when people start to work from home plus hybrid situation, people actually start work harder. And yes, burnout is true, and especially cover like for each other. And this is a marathon, as you said, the entire your career, it should be a marathon, and launching product should be a marathon, so that you are going to win in the long run. And this also leads me to another important advice I like to ask you in terms of, what do you think, what is the best practices or any advice on launching and growing product at billion-dollar businesses?
Yeah. So with in my experience, I've launched like multiple products that
Mm-hmm.
contribute to growing and building a billion-dollar business.
Yeah.
And so I don't work at like one product companies. I think there are like lots of really great ones out there. Like my area of focus is like, how do you create an ecosystem of products, right?
Mm-hmm.
That then contribute to overall business growth. Um, my piece of advice is always start with the customer. Like they're the person who's going to be paying you money at the end of the day. They're the ones who are going to be leveraging and using your product. And they're also going to be the people who give you insights and directions around what you should build next so that you can outpace your competitors. And so always start with the customer.
Mm-hmm.
And the product should be built around them. The go-to-market strategy should be built around them.
Awesome.
This that's the first piece. I think the second piece is know your why. That means understanding your overall market landscape, see where your market is going, make sure you keep an eye on competitors and who else is playing and entering the market so that you know what your market landscape looks like and how you can fit in as a business. And ultimately, when you fit in as a business, how your products play in that market landscape. And
Mm-hmm.
then last but not least is excuse me, make sure you're always measuring. KPIs are such a
Yeah.
core component of fully assessing and answering the question at the end of the day, is this working? And there's the essential like core KPI around like how much revenue are you contributing to the business. That's
Mm-hmm.
always going to be top of mind. But then there's also telemetry along the way. Like, for example, like a minute detail, like how many people are even interested or curious about this product? How many people are expressing interest? As they're expressing interest, like how quickly are we onboarding them to a product?
Yeah.
And then once we are onboarding them, what are the broken flows along the way that can help us accelerate
Mm-hmm.
that process? And then once they're in, which is a huge win, like how are we helping drive adoption and active use? And then ultimately, how many eyeballs are we getting into the product and onto new features? Like those are the core pieces of telemetry that you always want to be monitoring, measuring in a consistent way so
Yeah.
that month over month, quarter over quarter, year, and then eventually year over year, as you deliver on your product roadmap and you also deliver on your go-to-market strategy as a product and as a business, you're able to see like the momentum that you've gained over time.
This is actually quite similar to product management, especially start from customer empathy. This is literally all product managers need to fall in love with the customers, and then start from your strategy perspective in terms of what competitors doing, and eventually is data-driven methodology, product KPI, product metrics, success metrics, measure end to end. That's now today I learned so much regarding how much those two actually overlap, but driven by like customer adoption from product marketing perspective. This is awesome. Hey guys, we have a separate training regarding product strategies, and I invented a framework called Gucci framework. I'm going to link it in the description of the show notes so you guys can dive deeper regarding product strategy. And V, we have talking all day about growing product. Why don't we talk about growing you? And so what do you think about the importance of growth mindset, and how do you develop yourself? Any recommendation regarding self-development in general?
I think it's really helpful to have, if not essential. It's something that I absolutely look for in team members, and it's something that I strive to achieve for myself. I think it starts with knowing that you don't know everything, and the
Mm-hmm.
quest for learning is going to be never ending. I think it's also around this concept of being very open to feedback and coaching. And when
Yeah.
you do receive feedback, it's not necessarily a personal thing. It's usually a gift that you can then like sit with, understand, and then apply to your day to day. And when you do have a growth mindset where you're open to learning, open to growing, and also open to evolving, like you create space for yourself to become like a better person, a better professional. And then ultimately going back to the beginning of our conversation, you're able to get to those places where you want to get to as you craft, maybe a more intentional career.
Awesome. So do you have any like recommendations in terms of courses or podcasts or anything so that people can get started on learning starting from today? Oh, what's your
Oh.
favorite?
I think for me right now, I am more focused on like a lot of personal growth.
Mm-hmm.
I really like Shannon Zavala's work around building a self-made personality,
Oh, awesome.
because it's backed with empirical research.
Mm-hmm.
And like she's an awesome person, also a great researcher. There's a lot of like great frameworks there to explore. The second piece is around like health, like human health, and like optimizing for like productivity and wellness, especially in like super fast-paced environments. Like I
Mm-hmm.
love those types of environments for me at work. I also know in order for me to keep going, like I need to take great care of myself. So I am like
Mm-hmm.
an Andrew Huberman podcast fan. I love learning about the science of like human health and wellness and different protocols for improving your sleep, improving your diet, and like
Totally.
connecting with others. And then professionally, like I think for me, like I always want to be learning about something new, like outside
Mm-hmm.
of work. It's a great way for me to just like switch channels so that I can take a break and then go learn something new. I really like taking online courses, whether they're MOOCs, like courses on LinkedIn Learning. I'm also
Mm-hmm.
like part of the Product Marketing Alliance. I know there are different alliances,
Yeah.
including yours, to just like level up new skills. I think one big secret that I recently
Mm-hmm.
learned is like as a professional, you're always going to have like your two or three, like core areas of specialization, right? Those are your
Yeah.
superpowers. But then you also have like the other parts of like being a PM and being a PMM that like you should know and have, be dangerously good at.
Mm-hmm.
And so to continue rounding out those skills and keep them fresh, these certifications and these like continuous learning courses are going to be really, really helpful for that. And ultimately, like taking these into consideration, you become a better person, which then helps you become a better professional, which then helps you level up your career.
Yeah, and become healthier, which is the fundamental of everything we do. And recently, I personally discovered the importance of being healthy because I just became a mom of two, and it's like no time to even sleep. And now it's like I haven't been to the gym literally for a year. Very embarrassing. Now that wow, health is crazy important. I need to prioritize. I love you give the advice based on like the full multifaceted about a human, the health and career development, relationship, different things. We need to like grow every aspect of ourselves so that we can win in the long run.
Yeah, I mean, I think about it in terms of like there's just like the physical part of your health, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
your body, you're like you got to try and like help elevate your physical health, and then there's also like your emotional, mental, and spiritual health as well.
Yeah,
Like those come hand in hand. They're both really important. Like that helps you get to a good baseline. Like those are the core essentials. And then
totally.
when you move into like that's like the personal sphere. Then when you integrate, I would say with the professional sphere, it's around like how do you develop like your core functional skills, right? Your hard skills. So
Mm-hmm.
it's like if I need to do this, I'm able to do it. But then there's also like the soft skills as well, because you can't do everything by yourself. Like that is a recipe for failure. Also burnout.
Communication skills.
It's
Yeah.
like the soft skills around like how do you communicate, how do you resolve conflict, how do you identify opportunity, and
Mm-hmm.
how do you help like stimulate growth and learning like as a collective. That I would say is like the fourth piece of this four slice pie of
This is
personal
amazing.
development and professional development.
We so glad to have you today, and our audience definitely like have a full notes that written so amazing insight and secret and advice from you as well. Thank you so much for joining us. So, what's the best way for our audience to get in touch with you if they have any follow up questions?
I'm relatively active on LinkedIn, so you can always reach out to me there.
Awesome, great, cool. We're also going to link all the V's LinkedIn information in the description of the show note as well. Thank you for joining us and tuning for our next episode of Product Manager Insider Podcast.